Take this topic on as part of our Donlon Report dinner debate tonight with Republican National Committee spokesman Paris Dennard and former Democratic Congressional Press Secretary Rochelle Ritchie. Rochelle, we'll start with you. Do we need a law on this?
Well, look, when I think about this, it's very hard to not really look at the science behind it. I mean, it is true that there are different genetic makeups of men and women. So I'm not sure if there's necessarily a need for a law on this, but I do think that maybe the discussion needs to go a little bit further than what we're seeing. It's such a sensitive area, but one thing I cannot ignore is I cannot ignore science and I cannot ignore genetics.
Paris, clearly more of a red issue than blue.
I think the issue at hand is the role of parents and the role of parents being more involved in their child's education and not having indoctrination and things of that nature. There are big issues that going on in this country. I think there are particular issues of public safety, issues of the rising crime and things of that nature that a lot of parents are focused on. But this issue is one that is important. But I think parents want to be more engaged on it. I think that parents don't want to have bureaucrats dictating all of these things that relate to their children, and especially when it comes to sports and athletics.
All right, we got a couple other issues I want to get you on, so I want to move on now to Enes Kanter, who plays for the Boston Celtics, basically torching Nike for staying silent on what he called slave labor in China. Here's a bit of what he had to say.
Nike remains vocal about injustice here in America. But when it comes to China, Nike remains silent. Nike likes to say, just do it. Well, what are you doing about the slave labor that makes your shoes? Stop with hypocrisy. Stop the modern day slavery now.
So, Rochelle, let's start with you. I know Nike has been very quick and all in on athletes who take a stand on important social justice issues, Colin Kaepernick among them. Does Kanter have a point here that they're being silent on this situation in China?
No, I think what this says is this is complete ignorance to me. It's very interesting to me that he's able to attack Nike and not understand that in America, in this country, 42% of our U.S. imports are coming from China. So if you want to be mad at Nike, you might as well be mad at Apple. You might as well be mad at probably the dress that I'm wearing right now. You might as well be mad at the house that you are living in right now because of infrastructure and different materials that are coming from China. So it's completely ignorant to just attack Nike on this. And I would be curious as to where he stood when it came to female athletes having equal pay. Where did he stand on the gender pay gap that Serena and Venus Williams talked about, or when Allison Felix had to actually sue Nike because they were not paying pregnant women what they were owed? Where was he on those issues? And I would be very happy when China and all these other countries are expecting us as Americans to come in and wave a flag for them. When are they going to start waving a flag for the issues that we are facing right here in America?
Paris, China's taken a very hardline stand on this. And let's be real here. Nike needs China. I think you could probably argue that the NBA needs China as well. Certainly, I wouldn't think as much as Nike, but a lot of people, it sounds to me like, are trying to walk the tightrope here.
I don't think the athlete is ignorant. I think he made a very good point. And I think that it comes to accountability. I think he wants to hold Nike accountable because he plays in the NBA, and there's a lot of Nike endorsements that are there. But I think the American government needs to hold China accountable when it comes to their horrendous abuses, when it comes to human rights, the climate, and everything else. We have an administration right now led by Joe Biden and Kamala Harris that refuses to hold China accountable for things like COVID-19. Still slow walking that investigation, really going after them the way that they should. And so there's a whole host of questions that I think the American people have when you look at world leaders try to cross blame and chastise the American people when you look at what China is doing on a regular basis on issues like human trafficking and slave labor and what they're doing to destroy the climate. And so I think it's a fair conversation to have. We need to hold all of these companies accountable for what they're doing. And this is also the reason why we need to have more companies coming back to this country and having manufacturing in the United States that aren't dependent upon places like China and others that have tremendous human rights abuses. But at the end of the day, we should hold Nike responsible for the things that they do if you're a shareholder, if you're a player in the NBA. But ultimately, every American should look at our government led by Democrats and say, what are you doing to hold China accountable for all the atrocities that we all see that they do on a regular basis?
Joe, I want to make it very clear that while COVID-19 did originate from Wuhan, China, it should be also noted that the previous administration could have also done something about COVID-19 coming into this country when they knew that it was a threat.
We had Operation Warp Speed and have 3 vaccines for it. So I think the Trump administration did their fair share.
Donald Trump ignored it.
But when you look at what the Biden-Harris administration has done in terms of playing into COVID,
the Biden-Harris administration is cleaning up the mess of the Trump administration when it comes to COVID-19.
They're not cleaning up any mess.
They are, because they're actually trying to implement federal mandates and actually trying to implement federal mandates to ensure that people are vaccinated in this country.
And federal mandates are unconstitutional. The RNC is already committed to suing them for the fact that they are
federal mandates, meaning that the states have an opportunity to choose whether or not those mandates are actually implemented. But there are federal mandates.
This is why Joe Biden's poll numbers are tanking, because, especially with the black community, by double digits, because they view
Trump's
these
poll numbers were 38% compared to his 44%.
You know what? Here, this is funny. You can focus on Donald Trump all you want to, but right now, the president of the United States is Joe Biden, and he's failing the American people. He's failing the black community. He's not holding China responsible. So you can focus on Trump all you want to, but I'm going to focus on the people who are failing the country right now, and that's the Democrats who are in power.
Yes, we should always focus on everyone that has failed this country, previous and current.
Let me jump in on that, because President Biden is expected to go speak tonight at a rally for Terry McAuliffe. Is there a situation where you don't want the president there, as President Trump ran into in Georgia when he was going down to stump for senators after he lost his election? Is there a liability in having President Biden speak tonight, or do you want him there either way?
Well, look, I think it's very hard for McAuliffe to have him there. I mean, people are not happy, as Paris mentioned. People are not happy with Biden at all. I am not happy with the Biden administration, but I also don't ignore facts. I think that it's very difficult to have him there, considering everything that we've seen happen in Afghanistan. And with the polls being so tight between the 2 gubernatorial candidates, it's challenging because, you know, this isn't a situation where you have Democrats that are kind of toying with the idea whether or not they're going to vote for Biden. The issue that Biden is having right now is with independents. It is the independent voters that are causing his numbers to tank. Right. And so we have to look at what do those independent voters in Virginia actually think about Biden, and then we have to try to address that.
All right, well, we'll watch what happens there in Virginia in that gubernatorial race on Tuesday. We thank both of you for your time and your input tonight. Republican National Committee spokesman Paris Dennard and former Democratic Congressional Press Secretary Rochelle Ritchie. Thanks again to both of you.